A Werewolf Shifter Romance, written by Amelia Hart. Chapter 1. Voices in the Dark. The voices never stopped. They crashed through Anya's mind in waves, relentless and overwhelming. Fragments of thoughts, half-formed desires, whispered secrets that were never meant for her ears. 23 years of this constant mental assault had taught her many things, but silence was not one of them. She wiped down the tavern counter with mechanical precision, her hands moving while her mind struggled to filter the chaos. The leather apron she wore was stained with ale and grease, but it was honest work. Temporary work, the kind that required no questions and expected no permanence. Another round. A trader slammed his empty tankard against the wooden bar, his thoughts bleeding into her consciousness before his words ever reached her ears. He was calculating how much coin he had left, whether the barmaid with the crooked smile might warm his bed if he tipped well enough. Anya poured his drink without meeting his eyes. She had learned long ago that eye contact invited conversation, and conversation inevitably led to questions she couldn't answer. Where are you from? Why do you never stay long? Do you have family? The truth was a burden she carried alone. She was telepathic, had been since childhood. Every wolf shifter within a few hundred paces became an open book to her whether she wanted it or not. Their thoughts poured into her mind unbidden, unfiltered, unrelenting. It was the reason she had been cast out at 16. The memory still burned. Standing before her pack elders, accused of invasion, espionage, violating the sanctity of private minds, her best friend had testified against her, his thoughts screaming guilt while his mouth spoke lies. She had heard him plotting to use her gift, to turn her into his personal spy for pack politics. When she confronted him, he had twisted the narrative, made her the villain. The elders had voted unanimously. Exile. Her parents had watched in silence, their thoughts a maelstrom of shame and helplessness. They believed her guilty. Everyone did. 7 years of wandering had followed. 7 years of moving from town to town, never staying longer than a week or two. She worked human establishments exclusively now. Their thoughts were quieter, easier to ignore, still present, but muffled, as if heard through thick walls. Wolf shifters, though. Wolf shifters were different. Their thoughts came through sharp and clear, a constant barrage she couldn't escape. That was why the 3 men in the corner made her nervous. They had walked in an hour ago, all tense shoulders and furtive glances. Mercenaries by the look of them. Worn leather armor, weapons barely concealed beneath travel cloaks. She had felt their presence immediately, their wolf minds bright and loud in her consciousness. Normally, she would have slipped away, made an excuse, ended her shift early, vanished before they noticed her. But the tavern was understaffed, the owner desperate, and she needed the coin. Just a few more days, she had told herself. Then she would move on to the next town, the next temporary haven. She should have listened to her instincts. Their thoughts hit her without warning. Sharp, focused, dangerous. The Duke rides through Thornwood tomorrow at dawn. We strike when he crosses the bridge. By dawn, messengers returned to confirm the ambush in Thornwood had failed. The conspirators scattered into the marsh roads, leaving only broken arrows and a burned cart to tell the story. Anya's hands froze mid-pour, ale splashing over the rim of the tankard. Her heart hammered against her ribs as more thoughts flooded in. 3 guards, maybe 4. Shouldn't be difficult. Once he's dead, the northern territories fall into chaos. Perfect timing for our expansion. Still wish we had that telepath the rumors speak of. Would make controlling the other packs so much easier once we take over. Ice flooded her veins. They were planning an assassination. And they were looking for a telepath. She forced herself to finish pouring, to set the tankard down, to move naturally. Don't react. Don't show you heard. Don't give yourself away. But one of them was staring at her now. The scarred one with the gray streak in his dark hair. His eyes narrowed. His thoughts shifting, sharpening. Wait. Is she? Can't be. Too convenient. Look at her hands. They're shaking. Anya's pulse thundered in her ears. She grabbed a cloth, pretending to clean glasses, but her trembling fingers betrayed her. She heard us. The scarred one's thoughts turned predatory. She's the telepath. She has to be. Run. The thought crystallized with perfect clarity. Anya dropped the cloth and bolted for the kitchen door. Behind her, chairs scraped against wood. Heavy boots pounded the floor. Shouts erupted, but she didn't look back. She burst through the kitchen into the alley beyond, her feet finding purchase on slick cobblestones. The forest lay at the edge of town, dark and dense. If she could reach it, she might lose them in the undergrowth. Their thoughts chased her. Excitement, hunger, the thrill of the hunt. Don't let her escape. We need her. Anya ran faster, her lungs burning, her mind screaming. The trees loomed ahead, salvation just beyond reach. She plunged into the darkness between ancient oaks, branches tearing at her clothes and skin. Behind her, wolves howled. They were shifting. Terror gave her speed she didn't know she possessed. She vaulted over fallen logs, splashed through a freezing stream, pushed deeper into the wilderness. Their thoughts grew more distant, but never disappeared entirely. They were tracking her scent now, coordinating their pursuit with pack tactics. She stumbled into a clearing and nearly sobbed with relief when she saw them. Royal guards. 6 of them, mounted on war horses, their armor bearing the crest of the Northern Crown. "Help!" Her voice came out ragged, desperate. "Please, there are rogues! They're hunting me!" The captain's thoughts reached her first. Suspicion, calculation, then recognition of the danger in her words. "Secure the perimeter," he ordered his men. To Anya, he said, "Who are you? Why are rogues pursuing you?" "They want to use me." She could barely catch her breath. "I overheard them planning to assassinate a duke. They realized I heard and now they're after me." The captain's expression hardened. His thoughts sharpened with military efficiency. "You're coming with us. King Theron will want to question you about what you heard." Anya's heart sank. Out of the fire and into the forge. But she had no choice. The alternative was being captured by the rogues, and their intentions were far worse. The guards surrounded her, forming a protective circle as they escorted her through the forest. She caught fragments of their thoughts. Duty. Curiosity about this strange woman. Questions about whether she was telling the truth. They traveled for hours, the landscape gradually shifting from wild forest to cultivated lands. A massive fortress emerged from the morning mist, all gray stone and imposing towers. The royal seat. As they passed through the gates, Anya's anxiety mounted. She would be brought before the Alpha King himself, Theron Blackwood. Even his name carried weight, spoken in hushed tones throughout the territories. Ruthless, they said. Strategic. A wolf who had claimed his throne through strength and cunning. The guards led her through torchlit corridors, up winding stairs, until they reached a heavy oak door. The captain knocked twice. "Enter." The voice from within was deep, resonant, carrying an undertone of command that made her wolf instincts scream submission. The captain opened the door and gestured for her to proceed. Anya stepped inside and stopped breathing. The room was a study, lined with maps and books. A fire crackled in the hearth, and behind a massive desk sat a man who could only be the king. He was younger than she expected, perhaps in his early 30s, but his presence filled the space with undeniable authority. Dark blonde hair fell to his shoulders. Sharp features and a strong jaw gave him a predatory beauty. He wore simple but fine clothing, a silver medallion visible at his throat. But none of that mattered, because for the first time in 23 years, Anya's mind was completely, utterly, blessedly silent. She couldn't hear his thoughts. Panic and relief crashed over her in equal measure. She staggered slightly, reaching for the doorframe to steady herself. The sudden absence of mental noise was disorienting, like stepping from a roaring river into absolute stillness. King Theron's eyes lifted to meet hers. They were amber gold, burning with intelligence, and something she couldn't name. "My captain tells me you have information about an assassination plot," he said. His voice washed over her, but his thoughts remained impenetrably silent. Anya opened her mouth to respond, and found she had no words. For the first time in her adult life, she was blind. She couldn't read him, couldn't anticipate his reactions, couldn't know if he was trustworthy or dangerous. She was utterly, terrifyingly alone in her own head. And somehow, impossibly, that silence felt more intimate than any thought she had ever heard. Chapter 2. The Silent King. Anya's knees threatened to buckle beneath her. The silence in her mind was absolute, overwhelming in its completeness. For 23 years, she had lived in a world of constant mental noise. Now, standing before the Alpha King, she experienced true quiet for the first time. It terrified her almost as much as it intoxicated her. "Well?" King Theron's voice cut through her disorientation. He leaned back in his chair, golden eyes assessing her with predatory focus. "My captain informs me you overheard rogues planning an assassination. I'm waiting." Anya forced herself to breathe. Without access to his thoughts, she couldn't gauge his mood, couldn't anticipate his reactions. She was navigating blind, and the vulnerability made her skin crawl. "They were in the tavern where I worked," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "3 of them. They spoke of killing a duke tomorrow at dawn, when he crosses a bridge in Thornwood." Theron's expression remained unreadable. His fingers drummed once against the desk's surface. "And how exactly did you overhear this conversation?" "The guards found you running through the forest, not working in a tavern." She hesitated. This was always the moment where everything fell apart, the moment she had to admit what she was, and watch trust transform into fear or disgust. "They weren't speaking aloud," she said finally. "I heard their thoughts." The silence that followed stretched unbearably. Theron's face revealed nothing. No shock, no disbelief, just that same measuring stare that made her feel stripped bare despite being fully clothed. "You're telling me you're telepathic." His tone was flat, giving nothing away. "Yes. Prove it." He gestured toward the door. "Tell me what my captain is thinking. He's standing guard just outside." Anya closed her eyes, reaching for the familiar sensation of another mind. It came instantly, the captain's thoughts clear and focused. She spoke them aloud without opening her eyes. "He's wondering if I'm dangerous, whether you should have me restrained. He's thinking about his daughter, hoping to return home in time for her naming ceremony next week." When she opened her eyes, Theron was watching her with intensified interest. Something had shifted in his expression, though she couldn't read what. "That could be a lucky guess," he said. But his voice carried less certainty now. He stood, moving around the desk with fluid grace. "Tell me what the guard at the North Tower is thinking." "He's 3 floors above us." She reached further, her gift stretching to find the distant mind. It took more effort, but the thoughts came. "He's cold. Wishes his shift would end. He's thinking about a woman he met at the market, wondering if she'll meet him again." Theron's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He moved to the window, staring out at the courtyard below. When he spoke again, his voice carried a weight she hadn't heard before. "I've heard rumors. Whispers of an exiled telepath who wandered the territories years ago. A young woman cast out by her pack for invasion of privacy." He turned back to face her. "That's you, isn't it?" The memory of her exile stabbed through her chest. "Yes, and yet you're here now, conveniently appearing with information about an assassination plot." His eyes narrowed. "How do I know this isn't a trap? How do I know you're not working with the rogues, sent to distract me while they carry out their real plan? I'm not—" Silence. The word carried such command that her mouth snapped shut involuntarily. She felt it then. The weight of his alpha authority pressing down on her consciousness. It was different from reading thoughts, this compulsion. It bypassed her gift entirely, targeting something deeper, more primal. Her wolf stirred uneasily, recognizing dominance, wanting to submit, but her telepathic mind resisted, pushing back against the command in a way she'd never experienced before. The 2 forces crashed together inside her skull, creating a pressure that made her gasp. Theron's eyes widened fractionally. "Interesting? You're fighting it." "I don't—" She struggled to speak through the compulsion. "I don't want to fight, but I can't seem to stop." He released the command abruptly, and she staggered. His hand shot out, steadying her elbow before she could fall. The contact sent heat racing through her nerve endings, unexpected and unsettling. "Your telepathy acts as a defense mechanism," he observed, releasing her and stepping back. The loss of his touch felt strangely like abandonment. "That's rare. Most mental gifts enhance submission to alpha commands, not resist them. Anya rubbed her temples, trying to ease the lingering pressure. I've never been near an alpha powerful enough to test it before. Something that might have been satisfaction flickered across his features. He returned to his desk, but remained standing. His hand moved unconsciously to the silver medallion at his throat, fingers brushing against it. She noticed it then. Truly noticed it. The medallion was old, ornate with patterns that seemed to shift in the firelight. He touched it often, she realized. A habitual gesture. Why can't I read you? The question escaped before she could stop it. His hand stilled on the medallion. What? Everyone else is an open book. Their thoughts pour into my head whether I want them or not. But you, she gestured helplessly. Nothing. Complete silence. I've never experienced that before. For the first time, genuine emotion crossed his face. Surprise, quickly masked by calculation. Perhaps I'm simply better at shielding than most, he said carefully. No one is that good at shielding. Not from me. She took a step closer, drawn by the mystery despite her better judgment. Please. What are you? I'm the king. His voice carried finality, shutting down further inquiry. But his fingers remained on that medallion, and she wondered. The tension between them shifted, became charged with something beyond suspicion. She became acutely aware of the space separating them, of the way his eyes tracked her movements, of how her pulse quickened under his scrutiny. He cleared his throat, breaking whatever spell had woven itself around them. The rogues who were hunting you, did they want you for your telepathy? She nodded, grateful for the return to safer territory. I heard them thinking about needing a telepath. They plan to use me to control other pack leaders somehow, to expand their territory, which means they're not just planning one assassination. They're organizing a larger takeover. His expression hardened into something dangerous. This changes things. He moved to a map spread across the far wall, studying it with focused intensity. When he spoke again, his tone was decisive. I'll offer you protection from the rogues. In exchange, you'll remain at court and use your gift to identify traitors within my ranks. There are always those who would see me fall. With your abilities, we can root them out before they act. It was a trap, she knew. Accept, and she'd be trading one cage for another. Refuse, and she'd be vulnerable to the rogues who now knew what she could do. But the silence in her mind when she stood near him, that blessed quiet after 23 years of noise, was its own kind of addiction. Temporarily, she heard herself say. I'll stay temporarily, until the rogue threat is eliminated. His smile was slight but genuine. Agreed. Temporarily. He summoned the captain, giving orders to prepare chambers for their guest, to increase security, to send riders to Thornwood to intercept the assassination attempt. As the captain led her from the study, Anya glanced back. Theron stood at the window, silhouetted against the firelight, his hand once again resting on that mysterious silver medallion. And for the first time in her life, she actually wanted to hear someone's thoughts, if only to understand the enigma of the Silent King. Chapter 3. Shadows and Secrets. The chambers they assigned Anya were far grander than anything she had known in 7 years of wandering. Stone walls softened by tapestries depicting ancient forest hunts. A 4-poster bed with thick furs. A writing desk near a window overlooking the training yards. It was comfortable, even luxurious by her standards. It was also a cage. She understood that immediately. The guards posted outside her door were courteous but constant. The servant who brought her meals lingered, asking questions disguised as pleasantries. Even the room's location felt deliberate, tucked in the eastern wing where the king's own chambers resided just 2 corridors away, close enough to summon quickly, far enough to maintain propriety. The first morning, she sat at the writing desk and penned a brief letter to the tavern keeper. Simple words. An apology for leaving without notice. A thanks for the temporary work. She didn't mention where she had gone or why. No return address. When the servant collected the letter for posting, Anya felt the woman's thoughts press against her consciousness. Curiosity about the mysterious guest. Speculation about why the king had taken such personal interest. A flicker of jealousy that someone so plain could warrant royal attention. Anya had learned long ago not to take such thoughts personally. People rarely meant the cruelty that flickered through their minds. Thoughts were unfiltered, raw, often contradicting the pleasant masks they wore aloud. But it still stung. The second day, King Theron summoned her to the council chambers. She found herself standing behind his throne as 12 counselors debated matters of state, border disputes, trade agreements, petitions from minor nobles. "Listen," Theron had instructed before the meeting began. His golden eyes held hers with intensity. "Tell me if anyone's thoughts revealed disloyalty." It should have felt like the exile all over again. Being used as a spy, her gift exploited for someone else's gain, but the silence of his mind made it bearable. When she stood near him, the constant mental noise dimmed to manageable levels. His presence acted as an anchor in the storm. She listened. Most thoughts were mundane. Boredom. Hunger. One counselor mentally composing a love letter to his mistress. Another calculating how to profit from the trade agreement being discussed. Then she caught it. A flash of something darker from the elderly counselor to Theron's left. Lord Castor, the master of coin. His surface thoughts discussed tax revenues. But underneath, hidden deeper, something else churned. Plans within plans. A meeting scheduled for tomorrow night. A vial of powder exchanged for a bag of gold. Anya's blood chilled as she pieced together the fragments. Poison. In the king's evening wine. Delivered by a servant who had been bribed. She couldn't speak up here, not without revealing how she knew. The moment the council adjourned, she caught Theron's sleeve before he could leave. "My lord, I need to speak with you privately. It's urgent." Something in her expression made him dismiss the lingering counselors immediately. When they were alone, she told him everything. The assassination plot. Lord Castor's involvement. The timing. Theron's face remained impassive, but she felt the temperature in the room drop, not his thoughts, which remained frustratingly silent, but something else. His aura, perhaps. The weight of his alpha authority pressing outward in waves of barely contained rage. "You're certain. I heard it clearly. Tomorrow night. Your evening wine." He was silent for a long moment, staring at the council table as if seeing it for the first time. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. "This stays between us. If Castor realizes we know, he'll alert his co-conspirators, and we'll lose the chance to root out the entire network." His eyes found hers. "Can you identify the servant who's been bribed?" "If I'm near them, yes. Their guilt will be loud. Then we have work to do." That night, Theron arranged for Anya to pass through the kitchens during dinner preparation. She moved among the staff, pretending to be lost, while her gift sorted through their thoughts. Most were innocent, exhausted, worried about keeping their positions. One young man's thoughts screamed with anxiety, fear of discovery, the weight of the gold hidden beneath his mattress. Desperate hope that this would be enough to pay for his sister's medicine. Anya's heart clenched. The servant was being used, manipulated by someone who knew exactly which pressure points to exploit. She returned to Theron with the information. He dealt with it swiftly and quietly. The servant was removed from duty, offered a healer for his sister in exchange for testimony against Castor. The poison was intercepted. The conspiracy unraveled thread by thread over the following days. And through it all, not once did Theron make the discovery public. He kept her role secret, protecting her from the attention that would inevitably follow. She didn't understand why until he told her. It was late evening, 5 days after her arrival. She had been restless, unable to sleep, and found herself wandering the castle gardens. The moon hung full and heavy overhead, casting silver light across manicured hedges and stone pathways. She sensed him before she saw him, that blessed silence cutting through the mental chatter of the guards on night watch. "Can't sleep either?" Anya turned to find Theron emerging from the shadows near the fountain. He wore simple clothes, his hair loose around his shoulders. Without the crown and formal attire, he looked younger, more approachable. A fortnight after the sanctuary charter was inked, a rider from the north came late and hollow-eyed. He carried a rain-warped letter addressed only to "the girl we cast out." The seal was broken, their seal, and the words inside were clumsy with pride and fear. They spoke of a drought of voices since she left, of a house too quiet to sleep in, of a small boy asking if Winter could hear prayers. Anya folded the letter twice, then once more until it fit beneath the cord of her wrist. She did not answer that night. She only stood in the window until the lamps of the lower city went out. "Too quiet," she said, then laughed at the irony. "That sounds insane, doesn't it? Complaining about quiet." "Not to me." He moved to stand beside her, both of them gazing up at the moon. "I imagine silence is a precious commodity for someone with your gift." "It is. Which makes you—" She trailed off, unsure how to finish. "An anomaly? A relief?" Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, perhaps. Or pleasure. His hand moved unconsciously to the silver medallion at his throat, that habitual gesture she had noticed before. "Why do you touch it so often?" she asked before she could stop herself. "That medallion." His fingers stilled. "It's a family heirloom." Habit to check it's still there. The evasiveness in his tone suggested there was more to the story, but she didn't push. They were both entitled to their secrets. They stood in comfortable silence for several minutes. Then Theron spoke again, his voice lower, more vulnerable than she had heard before. "Do you know what it's like to never trust anyone? To always wonder if the loyalty you see is genuine or performed?" Anya thought of her exile. The friend who had betrayed her. The pack who had cast her out. "Yes," she whispered. "I know exactly what that's like. My family was murdered when I was 19. A coup orchestrated by my uncle, who I trusted more than anyone. He wanted the throne for himself. Killed my parents, my siblings. Spared me only because some of the pack remained loyal and fought back." His jaw clenched. "I won the throne through blood and necessity. And every day since, I've wondered who else might be waiting for the right moment to drive a blade between my ribs." The raw pain in his words made her chest ache. Without thinking, she reached out and placed her hand over his where it rested on the garden wall. She touched the edge of the medallion with 2 fingers. It was colder than the night. "It isn't your silence that cuts," she said. "It's the choice of it." He closed his hand over hers, not to stop her, but as if steadying a blade between them. The contact sent warmth through her palm, but something else happened too. The guard patrol passing nearby suddenly shouted, "Wait! Where did I put my sword? I had it just a moment ago." Anya jerked her hand back, confused. The guard's thoughts were chaotic, genuinely bewildered. He couldn't remember setting down his weapon, couldn't recall the last few minutes clearly. "That's the 3rd time today someone's forgotten something around you," Theron observed quietly. "What?" "The servant this morning forgot where she left the breakfast tray. One of my advisors forgot which document he was supposed to bring to our meeting." His golden eyes studied her intently. "And now that guard can't remember where his sword is." Anya's mind raced. I couldn't have. Perhaps your gift is evolving. Or perhaps the stress of being here, using your abilities so actively, is causing it to manifest in new ways." The possibility terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. She had spent her entire life as a passive receiver of thoughts. The idea that she might be able to affect minds, even unintentionally, changed everything. "I should go," she said, suddenly needing distance to process this revelation. "Anya." His voice stopped her before she could flee. "Thank you for what you did with Castor, for not making it public. You could have used that information to gain favor with the court, to prove your value. Instead, you let me handle it quietly." She met his gaze and found something there that made her pulse quicken. Gratitude, yes, but beneath it, something warmer, more dangerous. "I don't want court favor," she said softly. "I just want—" "What?" "To stay here. To remain in this blessed silence your presence provides. To understand why you're the only mind I can't read, and why that matters more than it should. To help," she finished instead. "For as long as I'm here." His smile was slight, but genuine. "Then help you shall." As she walked back to her chambers, Anya realized with startling clarity that somewhere in the past 5 days, this arrangement had stopped feeling temporary. The castle was beginning to feel less like a cage and more like something she hadn't had in 7 years. A home. Chapter 4. Dancing with Shadows. 2 months had passed since Anya first stepped into the castle's stone embrace. 2 months of learning its corridors, memorizing the mental signatures of its inhabitants, becoming something she never thought possible again. Comfortable. The autumn had deepened into early winter. Frost kissed the windows each morning, and the great hearths burned constantly against the cold. Anya had settled into a routine that felt dangerously permanent for someone who had spent 7 years never staying anywhere longer than a week. She worked alongside Theron daily now. Council meetings where she listened for treachery. Private audiences with nobles seeking favor, where she filtered truth from flattery. Training sessions with the guards, ensuring none harbored plots against their king. Her gift had become invaluable to the crown's security, but it was the moments between duties that had begun to unravel her carefully constructed defenses. Like now, in the castle's extensive library, where she had come seeking a specific treatise on ancient pack laws. She sensed him before she heard him, that blessed silence cutting through the background noise of distant servants' thoughts. Looking for something? Anya turned to find Theron leaning against a bookshelf, arms crossed, watching her with those amber gold eyes that seemed to see too much. He wore simple clothes today. No crown, no formal regalia. Just a man in the quiet of books. Research on exile protocols, she said, returning her attention to the shelf before he could see how his presence affected her. I thought perhaps understanding the legal framework might help me make sense of what happened to me. And has it? Not particularly. Most texts assume the exile was justified. She pulled a volume down, flipping through pages without really seeing them. They don't account for abilities that can't be controlled. He moved closer, close enough that she could smell pine and something uniquely him, close enough that the silence in her mind deepened, became a physical relief. I could overturn your exile, he said quietly. As king, I have that authority. Restore you to your birth pack if you wished it. Her hand stilled on the book. The offer was generous, impossibly so, but the thought of returning to faces that had condemned her, to minds that would forever think her a threat, made her chest tight. I don't want to go back, she whispered. I want to stay here. The admission hung between them, heavy with implications neither of them seemed ready to address. Theron's hand came up, hesitated, then gently closed the book she held. Then stay. Their eyes met, and something electric passed between them. Anya's breath caught as his gaze dropped to her lips, lingered there. He leaned in fractionally, and every nerve in her body screamed for her to close the distance. A servant's approaching footsteps shattered the moment. They sprang apart, Anya clutching the book to her chest, Theron turning to study a completely different shelf with sudden intense interest. It had been like this for weeks. Touches that lasted a heartbeat too long. Glances that communicated what words dared not. The terrible, wonderful tension of wanting something neither of them could have, because the council had made their position devastatingly clear. 3 weeks ago, they had presented Theron with a list of suitable matches. Noble-born alpha females from allied packs. Women of impeccable lineage and political advantage. The kind of queens who could strengthen alliances and bear strong heirs. Anya had been in the room when they made their case. Had heard their thoughts, clear and cutting as glass. The telepath is useful, but she's not queen material. Her gift is invasive, unnatural. The pack would never accept someone who can hear their every thought. She's a tool, nothing more. She had kept her face carefully neutral while her heart cracked beneath her ribs. The first candidate had arrived a week later. Lady Seraphine of the Eastern Highlands. Beautiful, confident, with a wolf so powerful it sang in the air around her. Anya had watched from the shadows as Theron greeted her in the great hall, courteous and distant. She couldn't read his thoughts. Couldn't know if he found Seraphine attractive, if he was considering the match, if he felt anything at all beyond political calculation. That silence that was usually such a relief became a torture of uncertainty. 2 more candidates had arrived since then. Lady Morgana of the River Packs, sharp-minded and strategic. Lady Alara of the Mountain Wolves, kind and diplomatic. All perfect choices for a king who needed to secure his throne. Anya told herself it didn't matter, that whatever was building between her and Theron was impossible anyway, that she should be grateful for the time she had in this place of relative peace. But jealousy, she discovered, didn't care about logic. The breaking point came at the winter solstice ball. The great hall had been transformed. Evergreen boughs draped the walls, candles flickered in every corner, and the finest nobles from across the territories gathered in their ceremonial furs and jewels. Music filled the air, punctuated by laughter and the clink of crystal glasses. Anya stood at the periphery, wearing a dress that had been provided for the occasion, deep blue silk that made her feel like an imposter among the glittering elite. She had been instructed to attend, to observe, to listen for any whispers of dissent or conspiracy. She watched Theron move through the crowd, every inch the commanding king. He danced with Lady Seraphine first, their movements perfectly synchronized. Then Lady Morgana, who made him laugh at something she said. Then Lady Ilara, whose gentle grace seemed to ease something in his shoulders. Each dance felt like a knife between Anya's ribs. "You're broadcasting quite loudly tonight." She turned to find an older woman watching her with knowing eyes. Counselor Meredith, one of the few who had advocated for treating Anya with respect, rather than mere utility. "I didn't realize I was projecting," Anya said carefully. "You're not projecting thoughts, dear, just emotions." Meredith's smile was kind, but sad. "It's written all over your face. You care for him. There was no point denying it. It doesn't matter what I feel. I'm not suitable." Suitability is a cage that powerful people build for themselves. Meredith sipped her wine thoughtfully. Sometimes the most unsuitable choice is the only one that brings true happiness. Before Anya could respond, the music shifted to a slower melody. She felt him approaching before she saw him, that silence cutting through the mental chatter of the ballroom. "Dance with me." She turned to find Theron standing before her, hand extended. Behind him, she could see Lady Seraphine's face tighten with displeasure, could hear the collective gasp of surprise ripple through the gathering. "My lord, I don't think... I'm not asking as your king." His golden eyes held hers. "I'm asking as someone who has watched you stand alone all evening, and who finds he cannot bear it any longer." Her hand found his before her mind could form objections. He led her onto the dance floor, and suddenly they were the center of attention. Every eye watching, every mind buzzing with speculation and judgment. But in his arms, with his silence wrapping around her consciousness, none of it mattered. They moved together with surprising ease. His hand at her waist was steady, warm. Hers on his shoulder felt the strength beneath the fine fabric of his formal wear. "You're the first person I've felt safe with in 7 years," she confessed, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "The only person whose presence brings me peace instead of pain." His grip tightened fractionally. "Anya, I know it can't be more than this. I know what I am, what I'm not. I just needed you to know that these months here, they've meant everything to me." He stopped dancing entirely, right there in the middle of the floor. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. The world narrowed to just the two of them, his amber eyes burning with intensity. "You think I'm doing this out of kindness? Out of pity?" His voice was low, rough with emotion. "Anya, Your Majesty, forgive the interruption." They sprang apart. Counselor Henrik stood there, Lady Seraphine on his arm, both wearing expressions of polite disapproval. Lady Seraphine was hoping for another dance before she retires for the evening. Henrik said smoothly, "And I believe it's time we discuss the, delegation from the northern reaches." The spell shattered. Duty reasserted itself. Theron's face smoothed into the neutral mask of kingship, but Anya saw his jaw clench, felt the moment he locked whatever he'd been about to say behind walls of royal propriety. "Of course," he said, releasing her completely. Anya curtsied and fled before anyone could see the tears threatening to fall. She made it to the garden before they spilled over, the winter air sharp against her heated cheeks. She had been a fool. Whatever she thought was growing between them was impossible. He was a king. She was an exile with a gift that made her a pariah. The council would never accept her, and he could never choose her over the needs of his throne. The blessed silence that was his presence approached from behind. "Anya, please don't," she whispered. "Please just let me be angry at fate, at circumstance, at everything that makes this impossible." "What if I told you," he said softly, "that I don't care what the council thinks is suitable? What if I told you that for 2 months, I've been finding excuses to be near you? That your presence has become as necessary to me as breathing? That I'm terrified of what it means, but more terrified of letting you go? She turned slowly. He stood in the moonlight, looking raw and vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. What if I told you, he continued, taking a step closer, that you're not unsuitable, you're extraordinary, that your gift isn't a curse but a strength, that I've been looking for a way to defy every expectation and claim you as mine? Theron. His name was a prayer and a plea. This is impossible. Perhaps. He closed the distance between them. But I'm done pretending I don't want you. Done caring about suitable matches and political advantages. Done acting like you're just a useful tool when you've become everything I didn't know I needed. His hand found hers in the darkness. Their fingers intertwined, and Anya felt something click into place. Not just the physical connection, but something deeper, more fundamental. Stay with me, he whispered. Not as a consultant, not temporarily. Stay as mine. And standing there in the winter garden, with the sound of music drifting from the hall and the weight of impossible circumstances pressing down on them both, Anya realized that sometimes the most unsuitable choice was the only one worth making. Yes, she breathed. His smile was fierce and possessive and completely honest. And for the first time in her life, Anya understood what it meant to be truly wanted, not despite what she was, but because of it. Chapter 5. Betrayal's Edge. The weeks following the winter solstice ball existed in a strange liminal space. Anya and Theron had acknowledged what lay between them, but the practicalities remained unsolved. The council's disapproval hung over them constantly. Lady Seraphine and the other candidates remained at court, their presence a persistent reminder of expectations Theron was expected to fulfill. They stole moments where they could. Early morning walks in the garden before the castle woke. Late evening conversations in the library when duty released them both. His hand finding hers beneath council tables when no one watched. Each touch, each stolen glance, felt precious and precarious. Anya told herself it was enough. That these fragments of connection were more than she had ever hoped to have, but doubt gnawed at her constantly, fed by the one thing she couldn't overcome. She still couldn't read his thoughts. That silence, which had once been such a relief, had become a source of agonizing uncertainty. When he looked at her with those amber gold eyes, she couldn't know if he truly meant the words he spoke. When he touched her, she couldn't sense whether desire was genuine or performance. The gift that had plagued her entire life now failed her at the moment she needed it most desperately. It made her vulnerable in ways she hadn't experienced since her exile. The revelation came during a routine council session 3 weeks after the ball. Anya stood in her usual position behind Theron's throne, listening to the mental chatter of advisors debating trade routes and tax policies. Her attention had wandered, exhaustion making it harder to filter the constant noise. Then she caught it. A stray thought from Lady Cordelia, the king's elderly advisor on historical matters. The woman's mind had drifted from the current discussion to memories of Theron's coronation 8 years prior. Such a young king, so burdened by his uncle's betrayal. At least the medallion has served him well all these years, protected him from those telepathic spies trying to infiltrate his mind. He's worn it constantly since his father gave it to him at age 15. Smart man, understanding the threat mind readers pose to the crown. The words struck Anya with the force of a physical blow. She swayed, catching the edge of the throne to steady herself. The room seemed to tilt, sound becoming muffled and distant. The medallion. That silver medallion he touched so often, that he claimed was just a family heirloom. It wasn't decorative. It was a shield, a deliberate barrier against telepathy, which meant the silence she had experienced from the very beginning, that blessed quiet she had cherished, had been artificial, manufactured, a lie. Her breathing grew shallow. Memories cascaded through her mind with brutal clarity. His surprise when she admitted her gift hadn't been surprise at all. He had already known. That's why he had tested her immediately, asking her to read the captain's thoughts, the guard's thoughts, not to confirm her ability, but to assess its strength. The careful way he had positioned her role at court, the protection he had offered, the kindness he had shown. All of it could have been calculation, strategy, using her gift while ensuring she could never use it against him. "Anya?" Theron's voice cut through her spiral. He had turned in his throne, concern written across his features. "Are you unwell?" She couldn't answer. Couldn't form words past the tightness in her throat. She pushed away from the throne and fled the council chamber, ignoring the startled murmurs that followed her departure. She made it to the garden before the tears came. Rage and hurt warred within her chest, each feeding the other in a vicious cycle. How could she have been so naive? So desperate for connection that she had ignored every warning sign. The silence that approached from behind no longer felt comforting. It felt like mockery. "Anya, what happened? Talk to me." She spun to face him, and for the first time since meeting him, she wished desperately that she could hear his thoughts. Needed to know if the worry in his eyes was genuine or performed. "How long have you known?" Her voice came out raw, broken. "About telepaths. About what I am. How long have you been deliberately blocking me?" Something flickered across his face. Understanding, perhaps. Or guilt. "Anya, the medallion." She gestured to the silver piece at his throat. "It's a blocker, isn't it? An ancient artifact designed specifically to prevent telepathic intrusion. You've been wearing it since you were 15. Which means every moment of silence I've experienced with you has been a lie." He didn't deny it. The lack of denial was worse than confirmation. "I heard rumors about a telepathic exile years ago," he said carefully. "When my informants reported unusual activity in the territories, I suspected it might be you. So yes, when you arrived, I already knew what you were. And yes, the medallion blocks telepathic abilities. It's been in my family for generations. Protection against exactly this kind of gift. Protection." The word tasted bitter. "You mean it's been insurance that I could never know your true thoughts? Never know if anything between us was real? That's not, isn't it?" She stepped closer, fury making her reckless. "You've used me for months, Theron. Used my gift to root out your enemies, to secure your throne. All while ensuring I could never turn that gift on you. And when I started to care, when I started to feel something, you let me believe it was mutual, that the silence between us was special somehow. It is special." His voice hardened with frustration. "Anya, I admit it started as strategy. I won't lie about that. But everything that's grown between us, everything I've felt, that's real. I fell in love with you despite my better judgment, despite every political reason not to. How convenient that you expect me to believe that when you've made it impossible for me to verify." She laughed, but it came out more like a sob. "Do you understand what you've done? My entire life, I've been surrounded by liars. People who smiled while their thoughts screamed hatred. You were supposed to be different. The one person whose silence felt like honesty, but it was just another form of deception. Remove the medallion, then." He reached for the clasp. "Read my mind. See the truth for yourself." "No." She stepped back. "Because even if you remove it now, how do I know what I'm reading is genuine? You've had months to prepare, months to construct whatever thoughts you want me to find. I'll never know if what I hear is truth or performance." The devastation that crossed his face looked real. But she had learned long ago that expressions could be faked. Only thoughts revealed truth, and his thoughts remained forever beyond her reach. "What do you want from me?" he asked quietly. "Tell me how to prove it to you." "I don't know if you can." The words hung between them, heavy with finality. Before either could speak again, a guard burst into the garden, face pale with alarm. "My lord, the castle is under attack. Rogues have breached the eastern wall. They're demanding we surrender the telepath." Anya's blood turned to ice. She had been so consumed by her confrontation with Theron that she hadn't been listening to the broader mental landscape of the castle. Now, reaching out, she felt them. Dozens of hostile wolf minds converging on the palace, and at their center, thoughts that made her stomach clench with dread. No wonder the air tasted wrong. Beneath the garden's winter scents, she caught a faint, bitter smoke. Mind mist, wolfsbane ash burned to blur the edges of thought. The perimeter felt empty until the haze thinned, and the mind snapped into focus all at once. Where is she? The telepath must be captured alive. Once we have her, we'll bind her power to our own. With her gift amplifying our commands, we'll control every pack in the Northern Territories. The throne will be ours. Take control of the Alpha King's mind if possible. If not, kill him. Either way, the telepath becomes our weapon. She stumbled, the weight of their intentions crushing her. These weren't the same rogues from the tavern. This was an organized assault, carefully planned, with her as the primary target. "We need to get you somewhere safe," Theron said, already moving to shield her body with his. "The inner chambers have reinforced doors. They're not here for treasure or territory." Her voice shook. "They're here for me. They want to use my telepathy to dominate other packs, to control minds on a massive scale." His expression hardened into something dangerous. "Then they won't get you." He started issuing orders, but Anya was barely listening. She was tracking the invasion through the network of minds throughout the castle. Guards falling to superior numbers. Servants hiding in terror. The rogues moving with coordinated efficiency, clearly familiar with the castle's layout. They had a traitor inside. Someone had been feeding them information, and they were heading straight for the garden. "Theron, they know we're here." Someone told them. The attack came from 3 directions at once. Rogues in both wolf and human form crashed through garden entrances, weapons drawn, eyes locked on their target. Theron shifted instantly, his massive wolf form placing itself between Anya and the attackers. At first light, they sealed the gates and questioned the night watch. Anya let the noise of the barracks fall away and pressed her sight through the threshold of guilt. Thin, metallic, unmistakable. It clung to Castor's squire like soot. Under the weight of Theron's stare, the boy broke. A purse of foreign silver, a token etched with a wolf's skull, and the guard rotations copied in a crude hand. Castor denied it, then faltered when Anya recited the shape of the lie sitting in his mouth. By noon, the king had him stripped of rank and sent in irons to the lower keep. She heard their thoughts even as they attacked. Strategies, contingencies, the order to capture her alive at any cost, but to kill anyone who interfered. Including the king. The battle was brutal and swift. Theron fought with savage grace, taking down 2 rogues before the others adjusted tactics. But there were too many. One came at him from the side while he was engaged with another, blade flashing silver in the moonlight. Poison. The blade was poisoned. Anya knew it from the assassin's thoughts. Knew the wound would be mortal if it landed. "Behind you!" she screamed. Theron twisted, but not fast enough. The blade caught his shoulder, silver burning through fur and flesh. He stumbled, and that moment of weakness was all his enemies needed. They swarmed him. Anya tried to run to him, tried to help, but rough hands grabbed her from behind. She struggled, but the rogue was too strong, already dragging her backward toward the garden's edge. The last thing she saw before they pulled her into the forest was Theron's wolf form crumpling to the ground, blood spreading across pale stone. And the last thing she heard, clear as crystal in her mind, was the lead rogue's victorious thought. "The king is down. The telepath is ours. By dawn, the Northern Territories will bow to our control." Chapter 6. The Mind Unbound. They caught a sentry stalking the inner corridor 2 nights before the march. Anya did not shout. She reached instead, careful as a hand to a skittish horse, and pressed until the man's anger flattened into silence. Her nose stung. A warm thread tickled her lip. The sentry blinked, lowered the blade, and knelt. When he woke, he remembered only that he had walked too far and seen a queen who smelled of winter. Theron said nothing then, but his thumb brushed the smear of red from her mouth, as if counting the cost. The rogue camp was a crude assembly of tents and fire pits deep in the forest, far enough from the castle that no reinforcements would arrive in time. Anya's wrists were bound with silver-laced rope that burned against her skin, suppressing any attempt to shift. Not that it mattered. Her wolf had always been weak, dormant. Her real power lay elsewhere. They had thrown her into the center tent, guarded by 2 massive wolves in human form. She could hear their thoughts clearly. Anticipation. Greed. The promise of power once their leader completed the binding ritual that would give them access to her telepathic abilities. She reached out with her gift, searching desperately for any sign of Theron. Was he alive? The poison on that blade had been specifically designed to kill an alpha. If he had died because of her, because she had been too consumed by her own hurt to pay attention to the danger surrounding them. The tent flap opened. The leader entered. A scarred man with cold gray eyes and thoughts that made her stomach turn. Domination. Control. Plans to use her gift to enslave entire packs, bending their wills to his command. The telepath awakens, he said, circling her bound form. Do you understand what you are? The weapon you could become in the right hands? I'm not a weapon. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. And I won't help you, he laughed. You won't have a choice. The binding ritual will give me access to your power. Your consciousness will still be there, aware, but unable to resist my commands. You'll read minds, and I'll control them. Together, we'll reshape the northern territories. He produced a ceremonial blade, silver etched with ancient runes. Anya recognized the symbols from her research in Theron's library. Blood magic. The darkest kind, forbidden for centuries. At midnight, when the moon reaches its apex, I'll bind you to me. He traced the blade along her cheek, not quite cutting. Until then, sit here and contemplate your new purpose. He left her alone with her thoughts and the guards outside. Anya closed her eyes, fighting panic, and reached out again with her gift. Searching, hoping, and then she felt it. That blessed silence cutting through the mental chatter of the camp, moving closer, injured, weakened, but alive. Theron. Hope and fear crashed through her in equal measure. He was alive, but coming here in his condition was suicide. The camp held at least 20 rogues, all well armed and coordinated. He couldn't possibly. The attack came without warning. One moment the camp was settling into evening routines. The next, wolves burst from the tree line on all sides. Royal guards, dozens of them, engaging the rogues in brutal close combat. Anya heard the chaos in thoughts and sounds. Screams, snarls, the clash of weapons and flesh. Her guards rushed from the tent to join the battle, leaving her momentarily alone. The tent flap opened again. Theron stumbled inside, half-shifted, covered in blood both fresh and dried. His left arm hung useless at his side, the poison clearly still working through his system. But his golden eyes blazed with determination as they found hers. Anya. Her name came out rough, pained. He collapsed to his knees beside her, fumbling at the silver ropes with his good hand. You shouldn't be here, she whispered, even as relief flooded through her. The poison will kill me whether I'm here or not. He finally freed her wrists, and she threw her arms around him before thinking better of it. He groaned, but held her tight with his good arm. I had to come, had to make sure you were safe. I'm so sorry. The words tumbled out in a rush. What I said, the accusations, were justified. He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. His hand moved to the silver medallion at his throat, fingers trembling. Anya, I need you to understand something before it's too late. Don't talk like that. The healers can... Listen. The command in his voice made her fall silent. I've worn this medallion for 13 years. Protection against telepathy, yes. But also, isolation. Do you know what it's like to never be able to fully trust anyone? To always wonder if loyalty is genuine or performed? I thought the medallion kept me safe. Instead, it kept me alone. His fingers found the clasp. Until you, who I couldn't read but who never tried to manipulate me. You, whose presence brought me peace I didn't know I was missing. You, who looked at me and saw a man instead of a king. Theron, I've been a coward, Anya, hiding behind this piece of silver because I was terrified of being vulnerable. But if I'm going to die tonight, I want to die knowing you saw the truth. He removed the medallion. The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming. His thoughts crashed into her consciousness like a tsunami. 13 years of carefully guarded emotions flooding her mind all at once. She saw his childhood, the massacre of his family, the years of paranoia and loneliness that followed. Every person who had tried to use him, to control him, to take what wasn't theirs. The walls he had built to survive. And then, She saw herself through his eyes. The moment she had walked into his study 3 months ago, disoriented and afraid, and he had felt that silence lift for the first time. His fascination growing into something deeper as he watched her work, her compassion for others, her strength, despite believing herself weak. The terror he had felt watching her at that ball, knowing he was falling in love with someone he shouldn't want, couldn't have, but needed more than his next breath, the devastation when she had confronted him about the medallion. Not anger at being discovered, but grief that she thought he had been using her. The desperate desire to prove his feelings were real, and now, dying from poison, meant for a king, his last thoughts weren't of his throne or his legacy. They were of her, keeping her safe, making sure she understood that what they had was real, even if it ended tonight. "I love you," his mind whispered, even as his body began to fail. "I love you, and I'm sorry I made you doubt it." Anya's tears fell freely. She could feel his consciousness starting to fragment, the poison reaching his brain. He was dying. Right here in her arms he was dying, and she couldn't. No, the word crystallized in her mind with absolute certainty. She had spent 23 years as a passive receiver of thoughts. But she was more than that. She had always been more than that. The accidental memory wipes, the guards forgetting things around her. It hadn't been coincidence. It had been her power evolving, pushing at boundaries she hadn't known existed. She could read minds, but she could also affect them. And if she could affect individual minds, what was stopping her from affecting many? Anya closed her eyes and reached out, not with the passive gift of reception, but with active intent. She found the rogues fighting outside, their minds burning bright with bloodlust and violence. She wrapped her consciousness around them, feeling the texture of their thoughts, the patterns of their neural pathways, and then she squeezed. Every rogue in the camp froze mid-motion. Warriors stumbled to confused stops. Wolves shifted back to human form involuntarily. The mental pressure she exerted was enormous, holding 20 minds simultaneously in thrall. "Stop," she commanded, and her voice echoed in their heads as well as aloud. "Drop your weapons. Kneel." They obeyed, every single one of them, unable to resist the force of her will pressing down on their consciousness. The royal guards looked around in shock as their enemies collapsed to their knees, weapons clattering to the ground. But the effort was killing her. She could feel something inside her tearing, hemorrhaging. Blood trickled from her nose, hot and copper-tasting. Her vision swam. "Anya, stop." Theron's voice cut through the haze of power. "You're dying. Let them go. If I let them go, they'll kill you. Kill everyone." She tightened her grip, and the rogues whimpered. "I won't let that happen." "Then let me help you." His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. "Use me as an anchor. I'm dying anyway. Let my strength be yours." "No, I won't let you." "Anya." He cupped her face with his good hand, forcing her to meet his eyes. "I told you I would give you anything. Let me give you this. Let me be what you need." She could feel it in his thoughts. The certainty. The peace. The absolute conviction that if his death could save her, it would mean something, would be worth the years of loneliness that had preceded this moment. But she couldn't. She couldn't lose him now. Not when she finally understood. Not when she could feel the depth of his love, the honesty of his soul, the truth she had been seeking all along. Instead, she did something reckless, something that should have been impossible. She opened her mind completely and pulled him inside, not just reading his thoughts but merging with them, creating a bridge between their consciousness that ran deeper than telepathy, stronger than any bond she had ever experienced. She felt his surprise, his wonder, and then his understanding as he grasped what she was attempting. He poured his remaining strength into her through that connection. His alpha power, his will, his very life force flowing through the bridge between their minds. And she used it, channeling his strength to stabilize the overwhelming pressure of controlling 20 minds simultaneously. Together, they were stronger than apart. The bond between them, forged in desperation and love, made them something new, something unprecedented. The rogues remained frozen, held in place by combined will. Theron's consciousness wrapped around hers, supporting where she faltered, steadying where she shook. "That's it," he breathed, his voice echoing in her mind as well as aloud. "I've got you. We've got each other." The royal guards moved quickly, binding the immobilized rogues with silver. Only when every threat was neutralized did Anya finally release her grip on their minds. She collapsed into Theron's arms, utterly spent. He held her, though he was barely conscious himself. The poison still ravaged his system, but the mental connection they had forged seemed to be slowing its progress. "Healers," she gasped to the nearest guard. "Get healers, now." "We're here, my lady." Hands pulled them gently apart, working quickly to treat Theron's wounds. Someone pressed something to her face, wiping away the blood from her nose and lips. But even as they were separated physically, she could still feel him in her mind. That connection they had created in desperation remained, a permanent bridge between their consciousness. She could sense his thoughts, his emotions, as clearly as her own, and he could sense hers. "Is this," he started to ask, wonder coloring his mental voice. "Permanent," she confirmed, knowing without asking what he meant. "I can feel you. Always. Good." The word carried relief, satisfaction, and joy. No more silence, no more walls. Just us. As consciousness began to slip away from exhaustion, Anya's last thought was gratitude. For the bond that made isolation impossible. For the love that had been proven in the most absolute way possible. For finally, being able to hear the one mind that mattered most. Chapter 7. The Queen's Claim. Recovery took 3 days. 3 days of healers working around the clock to purge the poison from Theron's system, to repair the damage Anya had done to herself controlling 20 minds simultaneously. 3 days of lying in adjacent beds in the castle's healing ward, their hands clasped between them, that mental bond pulsing steady and strong. The connection they had forged in desperation remained, permanent, unbreakable, a bridge between their consciousness that ran deeper than any mate bond recorded in the ancient texts. Anya could feel everything Theron felt, his pain as the healers worked, his relief when the poison finally cleared his blood, his wonder at this unprecedented link between them, and beneath it all, his absolute certainty about what came next. On the 4th day, he summoned the council. "My lord, you should be resting," Councillor Henrik protested as Theron entered the great hall, Anya at his side. His left arm was still bandaged, his movements careful, but his presence commanded the room as always. "This cannot wait." Theron's voice carried the weight of royal authority. "I have called you here to witness my formal claim." A ripple of confusion moved through the assembled nobles. Lady Seraphine, still at court awaiting Theron's decision on the marriage proposals, leaned forward with interest. "A claim, my lord?" Councillor Meredith asked carefully. "I claim Anya Whitlock as my mate, my queen, and my bond partner." He turned to face Anya, taking both her hands in his. "Before the council, before the pack, before the gods themselves, I declare her mine." The hall erupted in chaos, protests, shocked exclamations. Henrik's face turned red with fury. "This is unacceptable," he shouted over the din. "The telepath is useful, yes, but she cannot be queen. Her gift is invasive. The pack will never accept someone who can hear their every thought. You would destabilize the entire realm for the woman who saved my life? Who saved all of you when the rogues attacked?" Theron's voice cut through the noise like a blade. Anya controlled 20 enemy minds simultaneously while dying from the effort. She created a bond with me that makes betrayal impossible, that ensures complete honesty between ruler and advisor. "And you dare call her unsuitable? But the precedent," another counselor began. "The precedent is broken." Theron's eyes flashed gold, his alpha authority pressing down on the room. "I have spent 13 years hiding behind a piece of silver, terrified of vulnerability. That ends now. Anya is my mate, my choice. If any of you cannot accept that, you are free to leave my service." Silence fell. Anya could hear their thoughts, the mixture of shock, calculation, and in some cases, grudging respect. They were afraid of what she represented, yes, but they were also pragmatic. The attack had proven her power. The bond she shared with Theron made her nearly impossible to eliminate without killing him as well. Lady Seraphine stood gracefully. For a moment, Anya feared a challenge. Instead, the elegant Alpha bowed her head. "I withdraw my candidacy," she said simply. "It's clear where the king's heart lies. I wish you both well." The other candidates followed suit. One by one, they acknowledged defeat with varying degrees of grace. It was Counselor Meredith who spoke next, her aged voice carrying wisdom. "The council initially feared Anya's gift because we did not understand it. We saw only invasion, not protection." She looked directly at Anya. "But you proved yourself in the most fundamental way possible. You risked your life for our king, for our people. That is what a queen does." She knelt, and the gesture rippled through the hall. Slowly, reluctantly in some cases, the council followed. Even Henrik, though his thoughts remained bitter with resentment. "We accept your claim, my lord," Meredith said, "and we welcome our new queen." The formal claiming ceremony took place 3 nights later, under the full moon as tradition demanded. The pack gathered in the castle's great courtyard, hundreds of wolves in both human and animal form witnessing the ritual. Anya wore a gown of deep midnight blue, silver embroidery catching the moonlight. Theron stood beside her in ceremonial furs and leather, the silver medallion conspicuously absent from his throat. He had locked it away in the castle vault, a symbol of walls he no longer needed. The pack's high priestess performed the ancient rites. Blood and oaths. Promises spoken aloud and echoed in the mental space only Anya and Theron could share. "Do you accept this bond?" the priestess asked Anya, "knowing it will bind you to him for all your days, that his joys will be yours, and his sorrows will cut you as deeply as your own?" "I accept." Anya's voice was steady. In her mind, she felt Theron's love wash over her in waves. "And you, Alpha King, do you accept this bond? Knowing she will hear your every thought, see your every weakness, possess power over your mind that no other can claim?" "I accept." His mental voice spoke simultaneously with his physical one. "I choose vulnerability. I choose trust. I choose her." The priestess bound their wrists together with silver cord, then cut their palms. Their blood mingled as they clasped hands, and the bond between them surged with new strength. But something else happened too. Something unexpected. As the ritual completed, as the pack howled their acceptance of their new queen, Anya felt a shift in the bond. It had been one-directional in that first desperate moment, her consciousness reaching into his. Now it equalized, became bilateral, mutual. She could still hear his thoughts, but he could hear hers too. "Anya?" His mental voice carried shock and wonder. I can feel what you're feeling. Hear what you're thinking. The bond made us equals," she breathed, understanding flooding through her. "I can read you. You can read me. Complete honesty. Always." The implications were staggering. No more secrets. No more walls. Just absolute, terrifying, beautiful transparency between them. "I love you," she thought, and felt his joy echo back through the bond. "I know," he thought in return. "I can feel it, and you can feel this." His love poured through the connection. So intense it brought tears to her eyes. The weeks that followed brought more revelations about the bond's nature. Anya discovered she could finally control her telepathy with other wolves, could choose when to listen, when to block out the mental noise that had plagued her for 23 years. But with Theron, the connection remained always open. They could communicate across any distance, their thoughts finding each other no matter how far apart they were physically. It should have been invasive, suffocating. Instead, it was liberation. She learned to sense when he wanted privacy for his thoughts, and would gently redirect her attention elsewhere. He learned to do the same for her. They developed a rhythm, a dance of consciousness that felt natural despite being unprecedented. The council, initially resistant, began to see the advantages. Anya could verify the honesty of visiting dignitaries, could detect plots before they fully formed, could help Theron make decisions by reading the true intentions of those offering counsel. Her gift, once seen as curse, became the crown's greatest strategic asset. More importantly, she created a sanctuary within the castle, a place where wolves with abilities they couldn't control, gifts that made them outcasts, could learn to harness their power safely. She taught them what she had learned, gave them the understanding she had desperately needed as a child. 2 months after the claiming ceremony, the council voted unanimously to crown her queen. Not just Theron's mate, but ruler in her own right. The telepathic queen, they called her. The one who heard all and judged fairly. On the day of her coronation, as the crown settled on her head and the pack roared their approval, Anya reached across the bond to Theron. "I never thought I would belong anywhere," she thought to him. His mental voice wrapped around hers, warm and certain. "You belong here. With me. With our pack. With the family we'll build together." And for the first time in her life, surrounded by minds she could finally control, bonded to a man whose thoughts were as familiar as her own, Anya understood what home truly meant. It wasn't a place. It wasn't silence from the voices. It was being known, completely and honestly, and loved not despite it, but because of it. Chapter 8. Voices of Home. 6 months had passed since Anya's coronation, and the castle had transformed in ways both visible and subtle. The eastern wing now housed what the courtiers had begun calling the sanctuary, a series of rooms dedicated to wolves whose gifts made them outcasts elsewhere. Anya walked through the sanctuary's main hall, her hand resting absently on the slight swell of her abdomen. The morning sickness had finally passed, leaving her with an appetite that made the kitchen staff joke about preparing double portions for their queen. The twins were growing strong, their presence a constant whisper in the back of her consciousness. "You're broadcasting contentment quite loudly this morning." Theron's voice echoed in her mind, warm with amusement. He was 3 floors above in a council meeting, but the distance meant nothing to their bond. "Can you blame me?" she thought back, watching a young wolf practice controlling his empathic abilities under the guidance of one of her instructors. "Everything we've built here, it's working. They're learning, growing. No one has to feel alone anymore." She felt his pride wash through the bond, followed quickly by concern. "You should be resting. The healers said I'm perfectly healthy and should continue my normal activities," she interrupted, unable to suppress her smile. "Stop hovering. I can feel your anxiety from up there." "I'm not anxious. I'm cautiously concerned." Even mentally, his tone was defensive. "You're terrified you'll be a terrible father and are overcompensating by trying to wrap me in cotton wool." A pause. Then grudging admission. "Your telepathy has made lying to you remarkably difficult." "That was always the point, my love." Their mental conversation was interrupted by a timid knock on the sanctuary door. A girl stood there, perhaps 14, her eyes red from crying. Her thoughts were a chaotic storm of fear and shame. "Your Majesty," she whispered, "I was told you might help me. I can't stop hearing them. All of them. Every thought, every cruel word they think about me. I can't make it stop." Anya's heart clenched with recognition. She had been this girl once. Terrified, overwhelmed, convinced she was cursed. "Come sit with me," she said gently, guiding the girl to a cushioned bench near the window. Sunlight streamed through the glass, warming the space. "What's your name?" "Lyra. I'm from the Western Packs. My family, they sent me away. Said I was dangerous." "You're not dangerous, Lyra. You're just untrained." Anya took the girl's trembling hands. "I know exactly what you're experiencing. Every thought pressing in, no way to shut them out, feeling like you're drowning in other people's minds." Lyra's eyes widened. You understand? I lived with uncontrolled telepathy for 23 years, until I learned what I'm about to teach you." Over the next hour, Anya worked with Lyra, showing her the mental techniques she had developed. How to visualize shields, how to create mental filters that let through only what she chose to hear, how to establish boundaries between her consciousness and others. "It's like closing doors in my mind," Lyra breathed, wonder replacing fear in her expression. "I can actually choose which ones to open." "Exactly. And with practice, it becomes second nature. Some days will be harder than others, especially when you're tired or emotional, but you'll never be completely helpless again." Anya squeezed her hands. "You're welcome to stay here as long as you need. Learn. Practice. No one will judge you or fear you within these walls. Thank you, Lyra whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. Thank you for understanding. After Lyra left to settle into her assigned room, Anya remained by the window, watching the courtyard below. 3 other students were practicing meditation techniques, learning to quiet the mental noise. A young man with precognitive abilities worked with an instructor on controlling when he accessed his visions. An empath practiced shielding herself from the emotional overflow of crowds. 7 students so far. 7 wolves who would have been cast out, feared, isolated. Now they had a home, a purpose, a future. Anya felt Theron's consciousness brush against hers again, his mental voice thick with emotion. That was beautiful to witness. You gave her what no one gave you. Hope. We gave her what no one gave us, Anya corrected. This sanctuary exists because we both know what it means to be isolated, to be feared for something we can't control. She felt his agreement, followed by a surge of mischief that made her instantly wary. Before she could ask what he was planning, his thought boomed through their bond, loud and deliberate enough to make her gasp. I love my queen. She is brilliant and beautiful, and I cannot wait to get her alone tonight. Heat flooded her cheeks as nearby wolves turned to stare, clearly confused by their queen's sudden blush. Anya pressed her hands to her burning face. Theron, stop that. His mental laughter was unrepentant. You said I should express my feelings more openly. I'm simply following your advice. I meant with words, not mental shouting that makes me look insane in public. Where's the fun in that? His amusement wrapped around her like a warm embrace. Besides, I enjoy watching you blush. It's adorable. I'm going to block you out for the rest of the day. No, you won't. You love our connection too much. He was right, and they both knew it. Despite her embarrassment, Anya couldn't suppress her own laughter. Their bond had brought unexpected gifts beyond the ability to verify truth. It had brought playfulness, intimacy of a kind she had never imagined possible, the freedom to be completely herself, without fear of judgment. The afternoon brought meetings with foreign dignitaries, representatives from 3 neighboring territories seeking advice on establishing their own sanctuaries for gifted wolves. Anya sat beside Theron on twin thrones, listening to their requests while simultaneously reading their true intentions. Most were genuine in their desire to help, but one ambassador's thoughts revealed ulterior motives. He planned to use any sanctuary established in his territory as a way to identify and control gifted wolves for military purposes. Through their bond, Anya shared this knowledge with Theron instantly. His expression remained neutral, but she felt his anger spike. We appreciate your interest, Ambassador Kolvar, Theron said smoothly. However, the sanctuaries we establish must be independent of political control. They exist to protect and educate, not to serve as recruitment centers. The ambassador's face tightened. I assure you, Your Majesty, we have only the welfare of these individuals in mind. Your thoughts say otherwise, Anya said quietly. Every head in the room turned to her. You see gifted wolves as weapons to be deployed. That is precisely the mindset we're working to change. Stunned silence followed. The other ambassadors exchanged nervous glances, suddenly aware that their queen could hear more than just spoken words. How dare you accuse me based on... Kolvar sputtered. Based on what I know to be true. Anya's voice remained gentle but firm. I understand the temptation to weaponize abilities you don't fully understand. But these are people, not tools. If you truly wish to establish a sanctuary, you must commit to their autonomy and protection above all else. The meeting concluded shortly after, with 2 of the 3 ambassadors agreeing to revised terms that guaranteed independence for any sanctuaries established in their territories. Kolvar departed in anger, but Anya felt no regret. Better to lose one alliance than compromise the safety of gifted wolves. That evening, she stood with Theron on the castle's highest balcony, watching the sun set over the territories. His arm wrapped around her waist, his hand resting protectively over where their children grew. I felt them today, she said softly. Really felt them. Their consciousness is developing faster than the healers expected. They're trying to communicate. With each other? Theron's mental voice carried wonder and concern in equal measure. with each other, with me, even attempting to reach you through our bond. She placed her hand over his. They're going to be powerful, Theron. More powerful than either of us anticipated. She felt his panic spike before he could mask it. 2 telepathic infants. How exactly does one parent telepathic children who can hear every thought? Very carefully, she suggested, laughing at his genuine distress. Though I suspect we'll learn together. At least they won't be able to lie to us. Or keep secrets. That should make the teenage years interesting. That's not reassuring when I consider what thoughts might be inappropriate for children to hear from their parents. Then you'll have to develop better mental discipline. No more of those detailed fantasies you broadcast when you think I'm distracted during council meetings. You said you weren't paying attention to those. I lied. Well, I omitted. There's a difference. Her smile turned wicked. I particularly enjoyed last week's scenario involving the library and that reading chair you're so fond of. His embarrassment flooded through the bond, followed quickly by desire. Anya. Later, she promised, turning in his arms to face him fully. Right now, I want to talk about something serious. His expression sobered. What is it? I've been thinking about succession. About the future. Our children will be the first royals born with telepathic abilities. That's going to change everything about how this kingdom is governed. They'll be able to verify truth, detect threats before they form, communicate across vast distances. Theron's mind raced with possibilities and concerns. It gives them enormous power. How do we ensure they use it wisely? By teaching them what we learned. That power without compassion becomes tyranny. That being able to read minds doesn't mean you should control them. That vulnerability and honesty are strengths, not weaknesses. He pressed his forehead against hers, their bond humming with shared purpose. You're going to be an incredible mother. We're going to be incredible parents. Together, just like everything else. A messenger interrupted their moment, bowing deeply. Your Majesties, ambassadors from the Eastern Territories have arrived unexpectedly. They seek immediate audience regarding urgent matters. Theron and Anya exchanged glances, reading the concern in each other's thoughts. Send them to the private receiving room, Theron instructed. We'll meet them there shortly. As they made their way through the castle corridors, Anya reached out with her gift, searching for the ambassador's mental signatures. What she found made her steps falter. Theron, they're not here for sanctuary advice. They're here because they've discovered something about the ancient bloodlines. Something about why telepaths are so rare now. What did they find? I can't read clearly from this distance, but whatever it is, they're terrified. And they think it involves our children. They entered the receiving room to find 3 elderly wolves waiting, their faces etched with worry. The lead ambassador, a white-haired woman named Sarah, bowed deeply. Your Majesties, forgive the intrusion, but we've uncovered records in our territory's oldest archives. Records about the Moonborn bloodline and why it nearly vanished centuries ago. Anya's blood ran cold. Moonborn. The same term she'd heard whispered about powerful telepaths in ancient times. Tell us everything, Theron commanded, his alpha authority filling the room. As they listened to the ambassadors explain what they'd discovered, about a purge centuries ago that had nearly eliminated telepathic bloodlines, about prophecies suggesting the gifts would return in a time of great need, Anya felt her children respond within her womb. Their consciousness pulsed with power, with purpose, with something that felt almost like recognition. Through their bond, Theron's voice was steady and certain. Whatever this means, whatever challenges we face them together. You, me, and our children. We'll protect them, we'll teach them, and we'll ensure that what happened centuries ago never happens again. Anya placed her hand over her stomach, feeling the twins settle at the sound of their father's promise. Around her, she could sense the minds of everyone in the castle. The guards loyal and vigilant. The council members curious and concerned. The sanctuary students practicing their gifts without fear, from exile to queen, from cursed to blessed, from isolation to connection. The voices in her head no longer screamed chaos and pain. Now they whispered love, loyalty, and the promise of a future where being different wasn't something to fear, but something to celebrate. What are you thinking? Theron asked aloud, though he could feel her contentment through their bond. That I spent 23 years trying to find silence, she said, meeting his golden eyes. But what I needed all along was to find the right voices to fill it. As twilight deepened into night and stars emerged overhead, Anya Whitlock, the telepathic queen, stood surrounded by the minds she loved most and knew, with absolute certainty, that she had finally found where she belonged. Not in silence, but in the beautiful, chaotic, honest noise of home.